Hi, here's a quick little lesson here on trying to get custom criteria into a query that you can use for a report that will allow a user to do things specifically by certain criteria, namely names, dates, date ranges, etc. It's all the same method. I have a little report menu here that we'll use to be able to demonstrate this. First of all reports are generated based on queries. Rarely will you ever do a report based on an entire table. So this method lends itself well to doing regular custom reports over long periods of time. I started out with a query. This is a query used in Premiere that actually shows you the employee's first, last, job title, and the name of the class they took and when they took it. So if an employer was going to run a report on everyone who took a class on a certain date, or if employees took classes at all, they could look up employees by class, or by their last name, or by date. Then they could see specialized reports based on that. This query comes up looking like this. We end up with every employee who has ever taken a class. I'm going to add a sort order to this. And there we go. We see that some employees have taken multiple classes. So let's go back to design view. Now my goal is to try to figure out who took what. Now the way we teach you in class is to simply do a parameter query where you put in enter the date here in the criteria line, and because Access has no idea what's inside those brackets, it looks inside brackets and says, hey, that's a field name. Well, no, it's not. And so when it doesn't find it a match for it as a field name, it'll ask you. Now that's lovely. However, every time you want to run the query, you have to enter the date, and it's a giant pain in the butt. So what we want to do is try to make it a little more convenient. So let's go back to the reports menu. Now, I've talked to you about using text boxes, and I remember ranting about how text boxes are not for text, but rather they're for binding to data fields in a table, or they are for being bound to a calculation with an equal sign. But they can also be used as little buckets, so you can actually stick criteria in them, use them as containers for criteria. And here's how you do that. So on the Design tab, I'm going to take a text box, and I'm just going to draw this text box here. Right? It says it's unbound. That's perfect. I want to leave it that way. I'm going to change the caption over here to say that they should enter the last name. Okay, I'll clean it up a little bit here. There we go. Okay. Now, second part. I'm going to click on the text box portion of it and make sure that I've got text box up here. And I'm going to change the name of it to something that I understand. And that's easy for you to understand, because we're going to use this in the query criteria. So it's also really, really good to know what these things are named. Okay. So now I've got saved. I'm going to save this. I've got a little text box here, and I can go ahead and type in a name if I want to. Okay, so there's the name, and I hit enter to definitely make sure that Access knows there's something in that box. And then I can use this in the query. Well, how can I do that? Well, let me show you. Here's the query. Now I want to set criteria for the last name. I'm going to right click and choose the build button. Then I'm going to go to my database, go to forms, go to all forms. You can do loaded forms too, but I just do them all. and then search for your menu that you, or whatever the form is that you called it. And then we're going to go in and look, there's the text box control that I named last name. So I'm going to double click that. Okay. And click OK. And that's what it's going to do. So you can go in here and you can run this query and check it out. It's looking in the container for what criteria you want. Now here's a problem. Sometimes you just want to run the report with nothing in it. Okay, so if I hit nothing, I don't put anything in this text box, and I run the query, I get nothing. But what if you want to run it, you don't want to specify criteria, and you want to run it and get everything. In other words, you want an unfiltered query. Well, here's one way to do it. Concatenate a star to each end of it. Oops. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so if we don't put anything in there, then what we've got is this. It gives us all 104 records. Yet if we do put in something here, and run it, we'll get just the one that we want. Okay, so just to reiterate, because I made a tiny little typo there, type in like, and then your wildcard in quotes, and then your concatenation symbol, and then do the same thing at the end. And that should give you what you need. Okay. We're going to go ahead and save this query. Okay, now the same thing can be done for all of these. This could be a multi-purpose query. Like, what you want to do is be able to write a query, once and have it do a bunch of stuff. So what I'm going to do, instead of creating a report out of this, I'm just going to make it a query. You can create a report and do the same thing with your buttons. Just to have a button there that opens up the report. So I'm going to throw a button in here that runs the query that I just made. That's going to be under miscellaneous and run query. Choose the query that you want, or the report, depending on what you're doing. You get a report in a different way. And I'm going to call it classes by employee. And I guess I don't have to run them all together. There we go. And then click next and finish. Okay. Next, you could do the same thing with a date. Excuse me. Or by date range. In the interest of time, I'm just going to quickly go through this and kind of show you what you can do. I'm going to add another text box. And I'm going to change the caption as I did before. And this time I'm going to show you that you can do something else with this. Notice how it says enter a date unbound, okay? If I go over back to view, I still have to type in a stupid date. Well, go back to Design View, select the text box, and go over to the Format area and say that this is a date. Tell it it's a date field. And then when you do that, look what shows up, the date picker. So now the user doesn't have to enter the date. They can go in and enter a date using the date picker, which is often very much more convenient. So I'm going to enter a date in here and see if we get anything. Remember, we always have to hit enter to make sure that it's looking at a date. And I'm going to go back. And I'm going to go ahead and enter the date criteria just to refresh your memory here. Build. And I'm going to do like, star, concatenated with the forms. And ours is called report menu. And what did I forget to do? I forgot to actually name that field. So I'm going to have to go in and try to figure out what that was. I think it's got label 10, label 10. Perhaps text 9 is the one that we just did. So I'm just going to leave it like that and hope. Okay. And there either might not be any dates that match that, or it wasn't text 9. So we can go back and fix that. It was text 9. Ooh, I know what I forgot. Perhaps that would be better. Our reports menu, we've got enter a date, we've got 9/1/2012. Before we do anything else, let's make sure that we actually have just run it from there. There's Atkinson, 10/1, okay. And then we've got take Atkinson off, put in a date. Let's do 10/1 because we know that works. And there we go. Okay. Sorry for mumbling my way through that. I was kind of thinking on the fly here. But there you go. And you could easily do a report based on this. And then every time you would run the report, then you could use criteria to get the particular report. And guess what? You can use the same query for each of these. So you've got efficiency there. You've got one query that does a multiple number of jobs. Okay, so that's how to use text boxes as criteria. And as I said, you can put another button down here that runs a report, that prints a report, just so you know, because this is getting a little bit long for you. I'm going to throw another button in here that I'm going to kind of take you to where the reports are. You've got report operations. You can open a report, you can mail the report, you can preview the report or print the report. Preview the report takes you to print preview, which is a recommended way to do it. Report view, remember, just looks at a continuous form. It doesn't show you what it's going to look like on the page. And whatever you do, don't print the report. In other words, don't just give her the option to print the report because it'll go right to the printer. So if you've got a mistake and you have 400 pages of report with a blank page every other page, that is going to be bad. So I've often done things like opened a report, preview the report on one, and it says preview the report. And then if they like it, they can just go ahead and print the report that that they're previewing. So you can put an additional button here that says print the report. And that is it for this video. I hope it's helpful. I imagine you're all at the point right now where this would be helpful for you, because I know that many of you are already working on reports and also working on forms, so this could be helpful. Again, if you have any questions, please email me. I'll be checking email all during break.